You're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. In the studio with me tonight, sort of in the studio, Megawatt Matt Watson. He was a racer. He's been in the sticker business. He is an announcer. He wears many hats at the RacerX empire. We're going to hear all about his career, everything that he's been up to, and how he has become one of the most prominent voices in pro motocross. Matt Watson coming up. Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Abadi, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. My guest, if you just heard the introduction, is Matt Watson. Matt, thank you for joining me tonight.
Joe, man, it's a pleasure to be here to hang with you, man.
I'll tell you, I think you're going to make my job pretty easy considering you're an announcer and you can just really come right at it off the top of your head. But you've got some really, really interesting stories and had a really, really interesting careers. But the first thing I have to ask, and you probably get this a lot, how'd you get the name Megawatt?
Man, it's funny, Joe. I do get that a lot. About 2002, on a Wednesday evening, the staff from RacerX, we were at a local track doing a track ride, an evening ride. And we happened to have this guy with us named Shane Watts. You may have heard of him. He come from Australia. Sure. He was multi-time GNCC off-road champion, absolutely off-road legend. And Shane was out riding with us. So Jason Wygant turns around and he says, "Hey, Watsy." Well, Shane Watts and I both say, "What's up?" Because at the time, people called me Watsy for years, Matt Watson, and he's Shane Watts. So I look over at this guy and I say, whoa, time out here. Time out. You don't come from Australia. And say, "Oh, my name's Shane Watts. I'm the legend. I do all these races. I'm the king. I come over here and I take people's nicknames." You know? So about that time, the guys are just losing it. They can't believe this, you know? And Shane, of course, he has a good time with it. So Dave Brozik from RacerX looks at us and he says, "You know what? He may be Watsy." And he points at me and he says, "But he's not a Megawatt." And from the next day on, nobody at RacerX, nobody at the Honda shop, nobody in my world called me Watsy or Matt again.
You know what I'm going to do, Matt? Here's what I'm going to do. Usually, every week we give away a sticker sheet like this. We give away a sticker sheet like this from Vmxq.
Yep. I'm familiar with that.
Right, for people who share the show. Okay? So they share the show, and then on Thursday morning, I post on the page, or sometime I do it live. We post whoever that winner is. But here's what I'm going to do. I am going to give away a subscription to RacerX.
Fantastic.
So, for anybody who's sharing the show, share it. When I take a look, we'll pick a random share giveaway winner, and you will get a subscription to the illustrious and most beautiful RacerX magazine. How's that? Being you're associated with them, right?
Oh, absolutely. You know, way before the days of the greatest magazine in the world, the greatest motocross magazine in the world, we were simply a newspaper publication, regional. And Davey started that. Davey Coombs, of course, started that in the mid-'90s. I was fortunate enough to meet Davey when I was about 11 years old and he's dad. But there's always been a home for me at RacerX at some capacity or another. And these days, I'm basically RacerX OG. You know, I'm a brand ambassador. My family runs the retail trailer at all the national races. My daughter and my wife do that to help out. I do anything I can to connect us to, say, the customer or the race teams, that type of thing. So anything I can to keep people positive on the brand, to keep people in touch with what's happening. That's what I do. Listen, I'm not the guy behind the scenes writing stories. I'm not the guy behind the scenes taking pictures by any means, but I'm the guy trying to keep the history alive.
Oh yeah, and you're out there taking it right to the people and promoting that brand, pressing flesh, as they say, going at it face to face.
Yes,
Matt,
sir. Glad to do it.
Where did you grow up, and when did you first become interested in motorcycles?
I grew up in Bridgeport, West Virginia, which is about 35 minutes south of Mount Morris, about 35 minutes south of High Point, right down I-79. And, I had a dad that was Mr. Mopar. My dad was into the hot rod scene, which means he rode Triumphs, he rode BSAs, that type of thing. But in 1972, you can't put your kid on a Triumph 650 or a Bonneville. So what you do, you get him a mini trail.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they did. My dad provided me a 1969 hardtail. It was a few years old. He actually put the tracks on a customer's dozer in exchange for this mini trail. They paid him some cash, gave him this old mini trail, told him it wouldn't run. So he put the dozers on the track, brought my first bike home, and within 10 minutes, discovered that they had it 180 degrees out of time. We fired the thing up, and I rode it for 2 more solid years before getting that illustrious XR75.
And how old were you at that point? That's a big bike.
I was 5 years old. I was 5 years old when he brought it home. And you remember, those weren't small bikes. They weren't these CRF 50s.
Right.
That are plastic and thin and small wheels. It had a big puffy seat, monkey bars on it, the whole deal. But man, listen, as soon as we pulled it out of the fence, the first time up the driveway, I ran into the fence. So as soon as we pulled it out of the fence, I had it figured out and we were good to go.
Did you have a brother that rode too?
I did. I had an older brother, and he was not near as into it. He enjoyed it, but on the other side, he got scholarships to go to WVU and stuff for his brain. So we were a good bit different.
You got the looks, he got the brains.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah, for sure.
Hey, Matt, let me ask you this: you're on the Triumph, then you get on the XR75, was it?
Yes.
When did you start racing? Because I know from the research I've done, you had some laps behind you on the motocross track too.
Absolutely. Basically, when we traded the XR75 for the first YZ80, is when we started racing. I had parents that they required us to go to church 3 days a week, and in the mid 70s, early 70s, almost all racing was on Sunday. Yeah. We were fortunate to have Dave Coombs promoted Saturday night races inside of Stock Car Track at Moto Drone Speedway in Pennsylvania. So I got to do that a good bit. And luckily, Mom and Dad would let me tag along with the local motorcycle dealer, his son. He would take me to the races on Sunday. And after church, Mom and Dad would come down and pick me up, or Dad would come down and pick me up at the local racetrack and watch the motos.
So your parents were involved with your early racing career as well?
Yeah, Dad was. Absolutely. Mom never watched a gate drop. Mom would not go. Mom would never watch a gate drop. She saw some pictures a few times. And of course, she saw it on TV, the USGP and that kind of thing in the 70s. And, I'm not going to go watch it happen, she said.
Yeah. Yeah. My parents would not go to a race either.
But you know what? My dad was the best, though, as far as, we put YZ100 air boxes on the YZ80, oversized carbs, that kind of stuff. He was a real technical guy. And, we weren't made of money by any means, but he was really cool about, providing quality equipment and things like that, making sure that, we were competitive and that we never lost sight of the fact that we're having fun.
Right.
That's why we're here.
Well, speaking of being competitive and fun, Full Circle Racing's got a special going on, Matt. 18 and 19-inch rear, 21-inch front. They come in black, $775. You send Tom McAllister your hubs. He powder coats them, does a beautiful job, builds you a whole new set of wheels. $775, still available at Full Circle Racing.
That's a smoking deal, Joe.
Yeah.
That's a smoking deal. You know as well as I do. You redo a couple hubs, you buy a spoke kit, you buy a couple rims, you're at $1,000 right now.
Before you know it.
Yes, sir. And you still just have pieces.
Yeah. The YZ80, what year was that, and how long did you ride that? What was the bike that you progressed to after that?
Man, you can only imagine. The YZ80 was a 79. As you know, Honda didn't make a CR80 until about 1980.
Right.
So we got that 79 in late of 78. So I had one of the very first Bob Hanna lookalikes, had this Yamaha printed on the seat,
Sure.
had the OW tank stripes. Now the 78 looked good too, but it just didn't really look like that 79. So we got that, entered our first races, got third in the first race. I think 7 people or something on the gate in the 7 to 11 class, and ended up third. And the bug was already there. By the time that YZ80 come, listen, I learned to read with Dirt Bike Magazine, with Motocross Action Magazine.
Yeah.
I grew up, Joe, at a time where they didn't give kids Adderall or whatever it is today. I was the original ADD case. I'm looking out the window, picturing a trail up through the woods at junior high, in grade school. They didn't have a medication. They didn't do this. They come by, they slapped me in the back of the head, and they said, "Pay attention, dummy." For sure. This is the
I do know.
1970s, and it just didn't work for me sitting there, trying to follow all these books. But when I got home, it was funny. I could read Marty passed Bob, who then returned the favor, and Hannah went on to win.
Yeah.
I didn't read Jack and Jill went up the hill, bro. I literally learned to read under the captions of magazine pictures.
It's funny you should mention that, Matt, because at that time, which I came up through that era as well, I'm a little bit older than you, but we had, of course, obviously, DeCoster, Robert, Ryer, Pierre Karsmakers, and I wanted to know where these guys came from. So I actually took an interest in geography because of motocross.
That's incredible, Joe.
I learned a lot about Europe and stuff like that, just because I was just so interested in the sport, and I wanted to know where everybody came from and what made them so good.
Listen, the Fierce Finn, Heikki Mikkola. I wanted to know why. The Russian general, Gennady Moiseev. I wanted to know who, where, and why. What made these guys so badass. And why they were so revered. And that's what you and I did. We studied the background. We
did. Now, you were quite an industrious young man, Matt, and even right after high school, it seems like you went into business for yourself, or you got involved in the dealer network somehow.
Yeah, I got involved with the dealer network, but we'll back up just a second. Yeah, we'll back up just a second. I first met the Coombs family in 1978, just prior to getting that YZ. And the bottom line was, I could not believe that, I was talking to somebody that had the connections they appeared to have.
Yeah.
And I immediately decided I'm going to be in the business. I'm going to be in this industry. I want to be like these cats right here.
Yeah.
So in junior high, you remember Stick 'em Up. Every magazine, circle the ones you want, 25 cents a pop. Well, it's amazing, Joe, what 25 cents a pop will do when you sell them for $1.50 in 7th grade. I was buying stickers from Stick 'em Up. Listen, I had the live selection for you. You didn't have to wait in the mail. You didn't have to send me a pre-posted envelope. I had choices for you. So I was buying stickers for 25 cents a piece, selling them for up to $2 a piece. And this is 1979, 1980. Because in West Virginia, kids couldn't get an FMF sticker. Kids couldn't get DG, Luft, LOP, JT Racing. Well, man, I thought it was pretty simple. And I said, this is just the start. So we worked that into, as you said, going into the dealership business at about age 18, knowing that nobody was going to pay me to race a motorcycle early. We figured that out. We didn't have the time, the connection, the resources to hit Ponca City, the World Minis, Loretta's, that type of thing. And I was fine with that. Absolutely. I was good with that. But I also knew that there was a place in this business for a kid like me.
And that was it.
Yeah. Simple as that. I went to work at the dealerships and, like everybody else, Joe, started building the bikes, sweeping the sport.
Let's talk a little bit more about Davey Coombs Sr. and how he helped your career progress.
He's the single biggest influence in my motorcycle career, without question. A lot of people don't know that Dave and Rita Coombs were school teachers. And I believe Big Dave was a principal at one time, or assistant principal at, I believe, Cheat Lake Middle School in Morgantown, West Virginia. So upon this chance meeting at a local pizza shop after a race at the local track, My dad and Big Dave started talking. Davey and Timmy, his brother, and I started talking. And all of a sudden, the subject of a report card came up somehow because they're school teachers. And Big
Sure.
Dave says, "Well, how's the report card look?" My dad said, "Huh, yeah, really?" He says, "Not bad, except for that conduct grade." Said he can't keep his mouth shut. That conduct grade's always a C or a D. Other than that, not too bad. So within moments, Big Dave looks at me and said, "Matt, who's your favorite rider?" Now, again, this is 1978. I look at him, Bob Hanna. Bob Hanna's my favorite rider. Why do you ask, Mr. Coombs? You bring me a good report card on Memorial Day, and you're going to meet Bob Hanna. What do you mean? Said, I promote High Point, and my dad was familiar with that. Said, and you get that conduct grade up, and you show me everything is at B level, and what you're going to do is you're going to get to meet Bob Hanna face to face. Well, man, that's all I had to hear. Now, I still had questions. Who's this guy eating pizza that's a school teacher that tells me he knows Bob Hanna? I still had questions. I wasn't sure about all this.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny. What are the possibilities, or what are the chances that they happen to be a school teacher, but they're interested in motocross, and there are you, and you're going off in a little bit of a different direction, or like I did too. We all talked too much in school, and yet here we are, 50 years later, making a living talking, but we won't get involved.
Yes, sir. And like you said, I was by no means a bad kid, but I always had the last word, always had the funny comment, that type of thing, or always had to add a bit of advice that nobody wanted. So, as far as the teachers were concerned. So, Dave, of course, made the fatal mistake, the ill mistake of giving me his home phone number. We didn't have cell phones in 1978.
Right.
And they gave me their home phone number. And about every 3 days for 3 months, I called and asked him if he remembered who I was and the deal he made me and how the progress was going. And he was so gracious, Joe. I mean, he never, hey, quick, call me, or, there wasn't no caller ID, so they had to pick the phone up. So, but he was so gracious, man. And he understood what it meant to me. He understood the effort I was putting out to achieve this goal. And when it comes to pass, Memorial Day 1978, we go to what was then will call. There was no easy ups. There were no fancy canopies and tents. You had a tarp with some guide wires on it. And we walk up there, and I give the young lady my name, and she pulls out a handwritten list, and she hands me a paper, Joe, with 4 simple letters on it. PASS, pass. What it said. So that was my pit pass. Okay.
That was it.
And I have it to this day. And it's in the office, or I would have brought it today and held it up for you, but I have it to this day. So as I worked my way through that gate, I ran into Big Dave. We walked straight over to the Yamaha box trucks lined up. I believe at that time it was Hanna, Glover. Actually, it was Hanna and Burgett, because it was a 250-500 national at the time instead of 125-250.
Yeah.
So I had Rex Staten, Burgett, and Hanna there. And as we walk around the truck, Big Dave says, "Hey, Hanna." And the next thing you know, "What the hell you want?" comes out of the truck, and out jumps the man himself. Out jumps Bob Hanna.
Right.
And goes over and slaps Dave, because they were good friends. There's a long story there too that we may or may not have time to get into, where Bob Hanna snuck into High Point Raceway to get some extra laps and told the guy standing on the fence, "It's okay, I know Dave Coombs." Well, the guy standing on the fence was Dave Coombs. So they had a great relationship after that. And long story short, on this end, there was my hero. There was my idol. There was somebody that I just couldn't believe I'd come in contact through by doing something so simple as my homework, as doing something so simple as paying a little more attention. And somebody cared enough about those things in my life to offer a reward. And Joe, from that day on, I've been afforded more opportunities by the Coombs family. I've ridden in Mexico, Canada, all these great Upper Peninsula of Michigan, done all these great things. And from that day on, whether it was Unadilla, Broome, Tioga, anywhere something was happening, they made sure I was included. They made sure I was on the list. They made sure I was behind the scenes. And, I was a junior high kid from Bridgeport, West Virginia, who moved on through high school and had opportunities that, man, I probably didn't even deserve, thanks to Dave Coombs Sr.
Yeah. We're going to talk more about that in just a second. But in the meantime, I want to talk about this. We have an event coming up, the CanAm 50th Festival. That is coming up in August. That is on August 19th, actually, is when they're doing the drawing. It will be a drawing for 3 Can-Ams there. I will be your host and MC that weekend. Gary Vmxq, Gary Jones. I know Jim Holly's going to be there. Anybody who had anything to do with Can-Am in the last 50 years will be at that event at Gopher Dunes. That's coming up in August, and we are giving away tickets for the drawing. We're giving away tickets, so if you keep sharing the show, we'll come up with somebody who's going to win one of those tickets too, with a really, really great chance to win one of 3 restored Can-Ams, compliments of John Lake, the Thistle, and the Can-Am 50th anniversary. What do you do now at Racer X, Matt?
That's huge. As we talked about a little bit ago, my main responsibilities are event management. At the Nationals, at Loretta Lynn's, at Minio's and things like that. I'm responsible for the retail end of the brand. My wife, my daughter, some of the interns we have will merchandise the T-shirts, the hats, the license plate frames, and we have a vending trailer. So my big responsibility now is make sure that trailer gets to each event, which will be all of the Nationals from Mount Morris on, Loretta Lynn's, the Mini-O's, to make sure that it's there, to make sure that it's fully stocked with all of our 2023 stuff, our latest designs. Make sure that people understand when they subscribe what the premium is, what the freebie is this time. And we obviously can't produce a magazine and send you 12 issues for $19.
Right.
That's not the game we're in. We're not making money there. What we want is we want the exposure. We want the sub numbers. We want people on board with us. And if we make things affordable and give them a quality product, then we're going to be able to keep print alive. And, there's a lot of people right now that are against print. They want everything to be digital. Prices are through the roof on everything. And Davey's committed to keeping a wonderful magazine that you can pick up off your desk, fold the corner of page 73 over, go back to it later, and that type of thing, instead of everything being digital.
Yeah.
So my responsibilities are pretty much, stay in contact with Scott Wallenberg and all the guys in advertising and Dustin Williamson, know what they're doing, know who their people are, take notes at the Nationals on, what our business is looking like, who our target markets are changing to be, what the trends are, and that type of thing. So that, and again, pretty much one of the office historians with Davey. So
how many, you just mentioned that you'll have that trailer and your family with you and people helping you going to Nationals. Last week we had Paula.
Mm-hmm.
This week we have Hangtown in 48 hours. I think I'm going to see you in about 48 hours.
Absolutely. Yeah. You and I are going to finally get to catch up a little bit. Every time we see each other, whether it's York, PA, or whether it's at Hangtown last year, there's just always something going on. But you're going to come up and you're going to sit down in the booth with me for a little bit this year.
Okay. Definitely. I'd love to do that. So you will be at Hangtown over the weekend, and I would be more than honored to come up there and spend some time with you in the booth. Who knows what we might talk about there?
And the honor will be mine, buddy.
How many weekends a year are you on the road, Matt?
Joe, to be honest with you, about 24 now. You used to be a good bit more. I was always involved with the GNCCs as well, because that is another company that's owned by MX Sports, Racer Productions, and Racer X. The entire series is owned and operated by Racer Productions, and they needed a lot of help there. It's a lot of moving parts, a lot of classes, quad day, motorcycle day, everything from micro, electric through pro. So a lot of things to do. But my heart, of course, is in moto and always has been. And when they had the opportunity to move somebody into that position, it really pulled some of the load off of me and allowed me to focus on national motocross, on Loretta Lynn's. And not only the week at Loretta's, I like to do a lot of regionals and that type of thing. I like to do a lot of qualifiers, Joe. So I'm really familiar with these kids. I love the kids, man, especially when you get into that 85 super mini class and
Yeah.
then into the schoolboy classes. When you've got a kid that's 14 years old on a 105, he's pretty strong. He's been there for a few years. He's at the peak of his mini bike career, and he's getting
Yeah.
ready to make that move. And then the schoolboy kids have just made that jump onto the big bike, and they've got a point to prove. We're here. And I just love it. So when guys like Nick Romano make the jump up, Ryder DiFrancesco makes the jump up, Casey Cochran, I've known these kids since they were 6 or 7 years old and talked to them on podiums all across the country.
Now, it's been over 10 years now that you have been an announcer. But what, and you know what, being we're talking about riders coming up and things like that, what were some of the more prominent races that you were the announcer at? What were some historic things that you remember happening during those years?
You know, as far as getting to be a part of and announce, naturally, Motocross of Nations, you know, coming off a loss and then defending at Red, or coming back to fight at Redbud and being successful, leaving there as the world champs. Man, that was absolutely incredible, because not only did we do it, Joe, on a perfect day on Saturday, not only did we take it to the entire world with force, but we kicked their asses on Sunday in the mud.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hear anything about weather. I don't want to hear anything. They're dry riders, this and that. We were equally dominant in the mud. And I got to tell you, guys like Paul Parabinos, guys like Bevo, guys like Tim Cotter, guys like and women like Amy Ritchie and Carrie Jo Coombs, they were serious about an American win. Okay, they were serious about the USA victory, you know, and there was a renewed energy and a renewed interest and a renewed pride for that event. And I got to tell you, it was something that you could feel from the day we got there, because, you know, previously on American soil, we were absolutely embarrassed.
Yeah.
You know, they absolutely embarrassed us. So that was one of my highlights, was to be part of that and get to call some of that. Jet Lawrence, only appearance at Loretta Lynn's, knew that kid was something special right away. You know, multiple battles with what are now star Yamaha kids, Nick Romano, Justin Cooper. You know, a lot of memorable races over the years. But to me, the most memorable would be the Motocross of Nations.
Yeah. And what year was that?
Just 19. Yeah, just a couple years ago.
19. Yeah.
Yep.
The only donations I went to Budge Creek.
I'm sorry.
2008, I think it was, or 2007, 2008.
And we destroyed them.
Yeah. Carmichael was on fire.
Ryan Villapoto on a 250F.
Yeah.
Absolutely dominated the entire world. Lapped up to like 3rd or 4th place, something like that. You could see the frame on that KX250F. You could see it stretch every time he launched it down that hill and landed. It was absolutely incredible. You were there. You got the feeling. You knew where I was at. So, yep, for sure.
Matt, we're going to take a little break here from our sponsor, Vmxq, and we will be right back with more Matt Megawatt Watson.
Vmxq, who already has a full line of vintage parts, now has air shocks that are an exact duplicate of the original air shocks so popular in the late 70s. So whether you're looking to build a full racer or museum showpiece, these shocks will give you that incredible 70s look and improve your bike's performance. These new air shocks are fully rebuildable with Vmxq rebuild kits, and all shocks are hand assembled in the USA with all new components. Every component is brand new. Just like the originals, our air shocks are adjustable with 2 chambers, high and low pressure, giving you tremendous flexibility for settings of your bike suspension. The Vmxq air shocks come fully assembled and ready for installation. Just add air or nitrogen. The kits include the manual and spacers. Visit Vmxq.com to check out the air shocks and all that Vmxq has to offer to help you get back on track and to keep that ride going.
We're back with Matt Watson. You know, Matt, you had the opportunity to work with some of the greatest announcers in the industry as far as motorcycle racing goes, motocross especially. I'm going to mention some names to you. If you could tell me when you met them, something special about them, and what was working with them like. I would really appreciate that. I think the viewers would be too. Number one, Larry Meyer.
Larry Meyer. I got to meet Larry Meyer at Unadilla. Larry was basically done with his announcing and that type of thing, but was gracious enough to come up and work with us on the anniversary of Unadilla. And you can't have a anniversary of Unadilla without Larry Meyer. And what a unique individual. The guy, to me, he was the Howard Cosell of motocross. The guy was the consummate professional, but you know what? He wasn't beyond having a good time. Loved everybody he worked with, and wanted everybody around him to be better. And did what was necessary to make that happen. Love him.
Art Eklund.
Art Ackerman, man. I didn't get to announce with him, but I've met him at a couple of Hall of Fame inductions and things like that. And one of the guys that I really wanted to use as a template grew up watching Art, just like you. When broadcasts become big, you and I watched everything we could watch.
Yeah.
We watched rerun. We taped it on VHS and that kind of thing. And we'll watch it over and over again. And if I learned anything from Art Ekman, it was content and delivery. Make the content relevant to what's happening, and deliver it so everybody can understand and get a vivid picture in their head.
Yeah.
Art Ekman, one of the best.
Dave Despain.
Dave Despain. Now, moving up just a little later, again, got to see Dave and work with Dave at some conventions and that type of thing. And if there was a guy that brought it to the next level of energy, it was Dave Despain. And everybody from Rob Bidas to Jason Wygant to myself can thank Dave Despain for that.
Yeah. Well, those were the three I came up with. I mean, there's probably more. If you'd like to mention one or two, who else have you had the privilege of working with that really left an impression on you?
You know what? Rob Bidas, one of the best in the business. Rocket Rob.
Sure.
Rob and I met at a dealer event in 2001 in Unadilla. Became instant friends. I answered every one of his vintage questions he had that day. He got pissy about it because I answered them all. And we became buddies right away. And he is one of the very best in the business of tying together the event, the promoter, the business end of it. Rob is just on point, whether he's on the podium, whether he's doing the Monster Energy Rig Riot, whether we're doing race call, which I specialize in. That's my specialty. But Rob is one of the best in the business. And, some people may agree or disagree with this. Tim Cotter, in my opinion, the best in the game.
Right.
Tim Cotter was the true product of Dave Despain, Art Ekman, and Larry Meyer. That was the true product of that. So if you ask me who I learned the most from in my entire career, it was Tim Cotter. I was at the very first event that Tim ever announced as a kid. Tim's only about 5 years older than me. I know he looks 10 years older than me, Dave. I know that. But he's only about 5 years older than me. And listen, that guy was pulled out of a high school press box on a Friday night by Dave Coombs, calling a high school football game.
Really?
At a time where everybody says Mohegan's fullback up the middle for a gain of 2, Tim Cotter said, number 33, Higgins, the ball carrier, around the outside, gain of 4.
Yeah.
And Dave Coombs said, looked up in the press box, and he asked his daughter, Carrie Jo, who is the boss of everything we do, said, who is that? She goes, oh, his name's Tim Cotter. Said,
yeah, it's funny, right here I have my questions in front of me, and it was the one about Eklund, Despain, and Meyer. And the next question was, what was your relationship with Tim Cotter from MX Sports? And let's talk a little bit more about that. How did Tim Cotter? How did he have an effect on your career and your relationship in the game?
Another crazy story, man. And, another thing where just the pieces fell into place. Cotter and I live about 5 to 6 miles apart, maybe only 4 miles apart. And we have for about 40 years. I recognized Tim. He worked for his father-in-law and they were bridge builders, road contractors. Lang Brothers Construction was the name of it. And my dad's company happened to sell Lang Brothers all their Caterpillar equipment, dozers, excavators, that kind of thing. So as I'm cruising around town as a teenager, 14, 15, I keep seeing Cotter in an old brown F-150 that says Lang Brothers on the side of it. And I said, I know that's the guy that announced High Point. I've never seen him race. I've never seen him ride a bike, which he never has. Okay, never has. One of the greatest announcers of all time. And I said, what is up with this guy? And it came to know Tim casually. But about that time, I started getting into the dealerships. He became more involved with MX Sports and less involved with the family construction business. So he became a fixture on the road for them. A few years later, as they would need side-by-sides and ATVs and dirt bikes, Davey always knew the relationship with me, knew that I was in that position. So they would call me and say, hey, can you provide us with this or that? Can you talk to your boss and get us this or that? And the answer was always yes. And in 2013, Tim Cotter, who now is familiar with Megawatt, knows who Megawatt is, a character in the office, friend of office, this and that, calls me up and he says, hey, I need a favor. I said, well, what's that, Mr. C? And to this day, I call him Mr. Cotter. I respect the guy. I said, Mr. Cotter, what can I do for you? He said, you can ride pretty good, can't you? You can ride a dirt bike. And I said, well, yeah, I'm capable. Why? He goes, well, I want you to run sweep on the GNCCs. I want you to, be a trail captain, make sure nobody's cheating if somebody's injured and all this. I said, well, okay, if that's what you need me to do, I'll be glad to. He said, okay, I'll call you back in a little bit and tell you when to start and this and that. Within 5 minutes later, he calls me back. He said, you know what? Scratch that whole thing. You're going to be an announcer.
Just like that.
Yeah, I'm 45 years old, man. I've never held a microphone in my life. Okay, I never went to journalism school, media school, never had any. Believe me, it's all I could do to use my Sony Discman back in the day. So
yeah.
All of a sudden, I want you to be an announcer. I said, man, Mr. Cotter, I don't know. If you ask me to do it and you're shorthanded, I'll be glad to do it. So within a week, I started doing some GNCCs. 2 weeks later, did some amateur motocross at High Point. And he said, okay, Mega, here's your big break. You're going to announce the National Motocross at your home track in 2 weeks. So
what year was that, Matt?
2013.
So who was riding 2013? That's 10 years ago now. Was Dungey in there? Yeah. Villapoto in there?
Yeah, Villapoto. Yes, absolutely. Dungey. Absolutely. A side note too, had a great time with Villapoto at Pala the other day. He was there giving Ryder DiFrancesco some support and some help. And one of the good guys to this day is Villapoto.
Yeah.
One of the good guys to this day. So, yeah, 10 years ago, hit it. Rob and I did the Mount Morris, the High Point National. Tim Cotter stepped in and helped just a little bit. And that day I got the blessing of Roy Jansen. You know Roy? And director of racing. He was AMA referee, pro motocross official for years. He's now our commissioner. And got the blessing of Carrie Joe and Tim and Roy all on the same day. And next week I'm living a dream.
Go on.
And the rest is kind of history. And it falls into that category of, here's a kid that loved the game. I was just dedicated. I told you I started dealerships at 18. I brought the first autograph signing to the state of West Virginia for a motocross race. It was just something dealerships didn't do. This wasn't Southern California. This wasn't NorCal. Believe it or not, Jean-Michel Bell.
Really?
Believe it or not. Yeah, Stanton was supposed to be there and canceled on me. And sure enough, drove 35 minutes up the road to the Holiday Inn in Star City, picked up Jean-Michel, who spoke very little English, brought him back to our humble little dealership, and people couldn't believe they were looking at a world champion in a little town called Stonewood, West Virginia, and about a 1,000-square-foot showroom.
I wonder if he's still talking about that story today.
You know what? It's hard to say. It might have been one of his first signings here in the States and stuff. hard to tell, but he was so grateful. And, you know, people told me it would never happen. Well, I was 18 years old. I started ringing Roger DeCoster's phone off the hook. I said, I see people doing these autograph signings all the time. What do we have to do? What's required? What do I need to fill out? What do we need to spend? What do we need to do?
Yep.
And Roger was gracious enough. He said, you know what? I'll tell Jean-Michel that you'll provide him some transportation and he'll be there with posters.
And that's what happened.
That's what happened, man. And
just 1 second. I got to take a little break here. Matt, one of our new sponsors, Replica, motorcycleparts.com. That specials this week, $48, $49. This is for Honda CR250. It's their air boot and their side panel cover mounting bracket. It's made of rubber. It's beautiful. And if you need a part reproduced, get a hold of Paul Parkinson Sr. at replicamotorcycleparts.com. You can send him your part. He will replicate it. You'll get one back, and there's no fee, and it's just a great way to do business. I've got a lot of their stuff right here that I've been using on our restorations recently. So get a hold of Paul Parkinson Sr., replicamotorcycleparts.com. How am I doing so far, Matt?
Joe, fantastic, Joe.
You sure?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to tell you, man, what a great day to be a vintage enthusiast like you and I. You've tried to source an NOS boot before for Elsinore's, and you're like me, you've got 2 or 3 in the bag.
Yeah.
But we paid dearly for those. And
well, you know who's got all the well, Bill Nasalrod's got all the parts.
Yeah,
you know, Bill?
Yeah. JC Waterhouse got a few stashed away and some cats too. But you know, it's a great time. All your sponsors, whether it be Vmxq&A, Full Circle, Preston Petty. Look, man, that Petty product, it looks just like the one did in '77. Man, it only fits better and will last longer.
Exactly.
You kidding me? That air boot we were just showing right there. Listen, you guys, if you're building racers and riders, only way to go. You know, you're not going to source that OEM. You're going to pay through the nose. And guys like this are committed to making us able to go race and allowing us to do so. There's those Petty fenders right now. What a smoking deal, $100 for a pair of fenders.
Oh, I'll tell you, you're going to put me right out of business. You keep that up. That was right
no,
off
you're going to make me a partner, bro.
Boom. All right. Let me ask you this. I know you have some. We'll talk about your motorcycle collection in a minute. Let's talk about your family a bit. You're married. You got kids. You have grandchildren. What happens? What's the dichotomy? I shouldn't say dichotomy. What is the diversity that you guys have to take your show on the road? I mean, does that work together, or does your wife not go along? How does that work?
Yeah, you know, it's been pretty interesting, Joe. She knew we've been together since 99, I believe, married for over 25 years. Mm-hmm. And she understood right away my connection, my life, you know, my involvement in the business, in the industry, just because of dealerships. You understand, Joe, that I was unlocking the door at 7:30 and locking the door at 7 o'clock that night.
Yeah.
You know how retail is, bro. You know what Saturday meant to me? An hour early, 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's what. While everybody was at the track riding, I was selling CRs, YZs, RMs. I was getting buddies deals on parts and new tires and sprockets so they could ride. And that was very important to me too, Joe. You know, I enjoyed being the guy. You know, when you couldn't source something or your local dealer didn't have it, you drove an hour and 15 minutes to my shop and I gave you 3 choices, whether it was a tire, a helmet, or a bike. You know, and I took great pride in that. So with the family now, I raised a son.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, I raised a son. He went on to the Marines, got his sergeant stripes, spent a good bit of time there, and just after about 6 years, decided the direction of some of the decisions made in the Corps didn't fall in line with what he wanted to do, you know, moving on. So of course, decided to move on. As I said, had his sergeant stripes, and he's a very successful contractor at a resort here locally, Deep Creek Resort. And I've got a 14-year-old know-it-all daughter. I've got a 14-year-old who, Joe, if you have any questions, you call me and I'll ask Hannah Grace and we'll get you the answer. Okay?
There was a time I had a 14-year-old daughter. She's much older than that now. We're children of her own. But yeah, there was no need for an encyclopedia with Jessica around.
Funny, encyclopedia. Listen, I got so mad during the pandemic. You know, we're taking these tests, but we got a laptop right here. So who was George Washington? Well, let's just Google it and we'll answer the question. So I literally had to go downstairs and dig through some boxes, and I brought up part of the World Book Encyclopedia that my dad made monthly payments on. Okay, much like your dad probably and everybody in the neighborhood. The guy come around selling the encyclopedias, and you wanted your kid to be able to research Benjamin Franklin. You wanted your kid to be able to research the Constitution. So that's what you bought. Unfortunately, you had to know how to spell. You had to know how to use that book and research. And if you didn't want to get considered a cheater, you had to take that information, process it in your own words, and present it to the teacher. Well, today you simply type something in and hit search, hit print, and now you're an expert on the subject.
I know.
Little different time. So with my 14-year-old being so adept at the technology, Carrie Jo simply provided the opportunity for me to take my wife, who's involved in a family restaurant. We own a family restaurant. My mother-in-law does.
Where? What's the name of it?
It's the Click Club, CLIQUE, the Click Club in Clarksburg, West Virginia. Again, about 35 minutes south of the track. Since 1949, they've been in business. And it's Italian seafood steakhouse. And every morning, my mother-in-law cuts the ribeyes off the loin.
Is that right?
Cuts the New York strips off the loin. Cuts all the steaks down to 12, 14, 16 ounce. And when she does that, Joe, the rest goes in the grinder. And that's the cheeseburger you're going to have at lunch. You're going to have ribeye burger, steak burger at lunch. All the soups made by hand, dressing. So, and it's Tim Cotter's favorite restaurant.
All right. You know what? While we're talking about West Virginia and where you are in location to the track, what I want to ask you is about this event is coming up right here. George Ackermans Moto Barn. He's got a beautiful museum down there that he assembled over the past couple of years. And George is going to be having an open house on October 28th. That's coming up in the fall. How far are you from Ruther Glen, Virginia?
I'm going to guess I'm about 4 or 5 hours. And believe me, if I'm open that weekend, I'm going to be there.
That would be great. I talked to George a little bit earlier today, and I said not today, but it would be yesterday. But anyway, we talked about that. We talked about the event, and Warren Reed's going to be there, Steve Wise, Barry Higgins, Don Kadalski. I will be there, Martina Faltova-Cope. And we were hoping that you could make it, and who knows, maybe you could, get a little coverage into Racer X on it, or whatever it might be. But it would be great just to have you there to share some of your stories and be with us there at George Ackerman's Moto Barn.
Man, I would be honored to do that. You know what? We could talk to Warren Reed, Kadowski. We just handed him an award 2 years ago at Daytona. Love that guy. You talk about a pioneer. You talk about a guy that did it for the love. The killer, Don Kadowski. That's that guy. Okay, and I love him. And you mentioned the name Megawatt around Don, and you might get a smile or not. I don't know. So.
We talked a little bit earlier about your motorcycle collection. I understand you're a Honda guy. And how many bikes do you have? When did you start collecting? And what do you have so far?
Really started collecting somewhere around 98, 99, that type of thing. And I'm pretty selective. I'm that guy that, I'll buy the whole barn to get that fender. Mm-hmm. I'll buy the storage unit to get that gas tank, and it's been unique along the way. Cause as you said, I'm a Honda guy, right now we'll call it 30 Hondas, no rusty junk. We'll call it 25 of them pretty much ready to go. Others might have had a little work done or waiting reassembly, but about 30 complete bikes, again, no rusty junk. One of my favorites, I bought a 1980 CR250.
Okay.
It was put back in the crate by Fox Racing in I'm thinking this was summer of 80, the story goes.
Right.
And the thing was in a crate for 17 years.
A new bike.
Yes, the 1980. They rode the bike. It's got
with the Fox. Is it upgraded with Fox parts?
No, sir. No, sir. When I tell you this bike has about 3 hours on it, This bike was allegedly taken to Ocotillo Wells or Superstition, somewhere around there,
Right.
and ridden to simply heat cycle the cylinder and that type of thing. Just a very minimal wear on the original 695s, which Mitch Payton and Brock Glover look at that bike and say that thing's sitting on the original tires. You know,
Yeah.
this thing is phenomenal. It is, like I said, sitting on the original tires. There has not been anything massaged on the bike. This thing is in amazing condition. And it's the last of the era. It's the last of the air-cooled, last of the twin shock. First of the plastic tank, had the reverse kickstart, wrong side, that type of thing. And just a really unique bike to me from a childhood. Didn't own one, didn't race one, because in 1980, I was on YZ80s, but still being the Honda fan I was, because they just didn't make a CR80. That to me was represented a special time. Brad Lackey, guys like that, on those bikes. So I had the opportunity to buy it, and I did. I'm an MR50 guy. I've got MR50s with 100% NOS parts. I've bought complete seats from Japan.
Really?
I bought handlebars. Oh, listen, Joe. I was that guy for a while. I got into it, had the resources through the dealerships, had the resources through Rob Bidas. You may even know a guy named Keith Linus.
I know Keith very well from OSA
Yeah.
Planet. And
Yeah.
OSA Planet in he's in San Diego.
Yeah, exactly. I just hooked him up at Palo over the weekend. Keith and I have been friends for 20 years. I've been in those storage containers of Keith's at 3 a.m. with a flashlight, holding up NOS Fox shocks.
Yeah.
Holding up NOS JT Racing visors. Holding up, the guy's incredible, man. He
is. And it's hard to get parts out of too.
Oh, listen.
Not so easy to get parts out of.
That guy's so tight, it's ridiculous. I love you, Keith, but you know where I'm coming from. I'm still waiting on the visor, Keith. Still waiting. So
so now, being I know he's got some OSAs too. You're not really into the OSAs or the Asian stuff or the European stuff at all?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But unfortunately, when I buy them, when I end up, okay, you got to buy these 3 bikes to get that 78 Honda or however that happens. Jeff Cernick normally ends up with them. If I get any, Jeff Cernick, Cernick's Racing, yeah. So if I end up with any non-Honda stuff, it normally goes to Jeff. But as a kid, the neighbor had Rickmans, had Makos. Somebody always had a Husky of some kind. So those are bikes that are part of my childhood.
Sure.
And when you're on a 79 YZ80 and a dude rolls up to your backyard practice track on an Alpha 1
on a Mako?
just rototills your whole track for you, with that 490, you remember that bike. Sure. And you also remember Magoo riding the bike. So, those are all parts of my life. I like all the bikes, but my investment is Honda because, as you know, a lot of the parts fit years, fit part scans like 73 to 76 or 78 to 80. So I have heaps of those parts, and it allows me to really enjoy it and maybe take it further than I could, say, trying to source parts for a Cowie or a Penton or, a Mako. Sure. So I just keep everything kind of specialized on the Honda brand, but I love them all. I got CR60s. I got XR75s, MT250 that I ride on the street, as 2-stroke dual sport. I ride it on the streets here in West Virginia with a dealer tag on it, ding, 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 ding through town, love it.
Let me ask you this, Matt. What events do you have coming up in the near future that you may like to plug?
You know what? I encourage everybody to check out any motocross national coming up toward you. As you know, it's super motocross now. We have combined the indoors with the outdoors. So even though last week was round 1 of the outdoors, it was technically round 18 of super motocross combined points. We're going to have a playoff at the end of the year at Chicago, Charlotte, and of course, going to end things up at the LA Coliseum. And I know I'm going to see you there for the finals, no doubt, at LA Coliseum.
Yeah, you will see me there. But you know what? You are the first person that I could really sit with face to face, and I'm going to admit something in front of I don't know how many people, but I bet you there are a lot of others out there who don't know too. How exactly does this work? We went through the Supercross season. Now we're into the outdoor. Do they funnel it down to just a certain amount of riders, then go back indoor for 4 rounds? Tell me how it works, Matt. It would be wonderful if we all knew.
Absolutely. And to keep it very simple, if you
Yes.
remember the days, we had a grand national champion,
Yes.
David Bailey. You had the camel plates, blue with yellow numbers on them. And that was a combined scoring thing. And it's basically the same. You need to qualify through wins or points in Supercross and Motocross.
Yeah.
Get a win in either one and you're in. Get enough points in the two and you're in. So we're going to end up with about 20 some guys instead of 40 guys. We're going to end up with 20 some guys. We're going to have 3-round playoffs. And listen, last week, Mr. Cotter said over $5 million involved at just those last few rounds. And I believe ultimately you're going to be handing over $1 million to the winner of each of those 3.
Now, this is where I may be a little confused. What do you mean by a playoff round? They're going to have enough points to get to where before there's this playoff thing, and from the playoffs it narrows down to the grand finale in LA?
Yes, exactly. So we're going to take everybody that has enough points, and we're going to allow them to what we call work their way into the championship through a win or through enough points. And at those final 3 events, the money's going to just be absolutely unbelievable. And the guy who wins those 3 events or has the most points in those 3 events is your total overall champion.
Where are those 3 tracks? We know the final is in LA. Where are the other ones?
Chicago, Charlotte, and LA Coliseum.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So now I've got a little clearer understanding on what's going on there. Who are some of the big sponsors for that?
Mainly Monster Energy. I don't have my list and stuff in front of me. Of course, MX Sports, one of the driving forces, Feld. Of course,
Sure.
they've teamed up together, and that's how you're going to have these incredible purses, this incredible TV package, Joe, that we have right now. It's never been a better time to be a motocross fan. Agreed?
Yeah. I absolutely do agree.
Peacock, NBC Sports, just incredible. You and I used to wait a whole year to watch the USGP from Carlsbad, and
Almost.
It was 4 months delayed.
It was, yeah. We used to see it in November, and that race happened in like June or July.
Yeah. Oh, yes, sir. Absolutely. And you just couldn't wait. You may have already known who won. You may have not, because there was no internet. And this is way before 1-900 Moto Info came along. And you remember that, my dad was so pissed, dude. My dad was so pissed when he got the phone bill. And what's this 1-900 Moto INF? What is this? So I said, well, I had to see who won. That's how we got the latest results. And he said, well, you'll wait for Cycle News like everybody else, is what he told me. So, it's going to be very exciting. And, man, I'm honored and I'm privileged to be part of it. This is a big change in direction, a big step in the promotion of our sport, the treatment and respect of our athletes as well, and opportunity for all parties involved, whether it's factories, whether it's promoters, spectators, TV channels. This is huge for everybody. It's the next step in elevating our game. And I have to tell you, you're not going to witness anything like it. When we go to those speedways, much like the Coliseum, I've already been told that we're going to be jumping out of the high banks of one of the speedways. The track's going to go up the high banks, much like the Coliseum when you jump up and out of the peristyle and back in. So going to be really cool hybrid tracks that'll be a combination, much like they're doing the GPs this day.
Okay.
You see a lot of the GPs are in arenas now, outdoor arenas, where you have very little elevation change, but you're outside the arena, back inside the arena, that type of thing. So these tracks are going to be longer than your standard Supercross track, offer some unique challenges, and really going to be a hybrid type of track.
Now, we're talking huge sponsors in the millions of dollars, international TV coverage. Do you think some of this money eventually will start spilling back down into the riders' pockets who risk their life and limb every week in that sport?
That's what this is about, Joe.
Oh, it is.
Listen, all that money, that's where it's going to. And everybody was in agreement on that. Whether it was the manufacturers, whether it was the promoters and that type of thing. And to keep our athletes healthy, strong, interested in lengthen their careers, it was necessary to do that. And their opportunity in this series right now, there's more money on the line than has ever been offered before. In those 3 rounds, Brock Glover was comparing the money for each round to series championships in his day.
Oh, I could easily believe that.
Yeah, just for each of those 3 rounds would have been comparable to winning a national championship in 1980, 81, 82, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Just for 1 round of racing. And the opportunity for these guys to have that kind of cash. The guy who finishes, I think Mr. Cotter told me, the guy who finishes 22nd in those rounds, that guy takes home almost $3,000
for one race.
For one race, 22nd place. That's last.
Yeah.
Yeah, $3,500. Okay. So
well,
pretty good.
We'll see how it pans out, because there's always a lot of chatter on the internet about what riders should be getting paid, could be getting paid, and no one knows exactly what those numbers are
exactly
or precisely. But they certainly do. They certainly do take a lot of risk when they go out there every week, especially on the Supercross tracks. Their careers, I guess it depends on their lifestyle, how they live, the endorsements they get as well. But it is a short-lived thing. I mean, 10 years, maybe.
Right. Maybe. Very few guys put in that Eli Tomac career. Very few guys get that Ricky Carmichael career.
Nobody gets a Carmichael career.
Well, yeah, the amount of years is one thing. Look at Kevin Windham. Kevin Windham rode for years. He had a great career. Did he have those championships that a lot of guys know? No. But was he competitive his entire career? Yes.
Sure.
And he bailed out while he was competitive. He didn't hang on too long. He didn't Brett Farvis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. He didn't hang along way past his prime and keep collecting checks. He let the next guy come in.
Yeah. No doubt about that. Well, Tim, I was going to ask you another Tim Cotter question, but I'll save that for another time, because I really want you to come back, or maybe we'll have a little discussion about that when I see you at Hangtown in a couple of days, and we'll go from there. But my guest tonight has been Matt Megawatt Watson.
Joe,
anything else that you can think of, Matt? Anything else you want to cover while I got you here?
No, I just want to take the opportunity real quick to thank you. You are an OG. You're a NorCal guy. The quality of work that you turn out in your other occupation is absolutely incredible. The amount of pride that you show, your attention to detail. You're a historian yourself, Joe. And, I want to thank you. I want to thank Bad Brad for being involved at all levels. I know he's a good friend of yours as well. I've seen him on the show many times. And what you guys do, you guys keep us relevant. You guys keep the connection alive from past to future. And, I see a kid come in the pits at Loretta Lynn's, and he throws down an $8,000 Husky Mini and says, "This piece of crap." I have to walk over and tell the kid that you've never ridden a piece of crap.
Right.
You don't know what a piece of crap. Oh, did you ride a TM75? Oh, interesting. I didn't notice. Okay. Yeah. And, guys like you, again, guys like Brad, I want to thank Davey. I want to thank Carrie Joe. I want to thank Tim Cotter, for their commitment to make us the most professional motorsport on the earth. So many organizations try to do things and they focus on maybe the wrong things. They focus on maybe just exposure. They focus on maybe one or two names. But you know what? We focus on the sport as a family, whether it's from the athletes, the manufacturers, especially the privateer going week to week. And, that's just the note I want to leave on. Is, we've been blessed, whether it's you, myself, anybody in the industry, to be part of it, to get paid to do it. Yeah. and to share that and pass that on. And it just want everybody to know that I'm grateful, and I don't take a bit of my position or my privileges or anything for granted by any means. And I'm grateful
You
for it
worked
every
for it,
day.
Matt.
And I'm grateful.
You worked for it, Matt.
Well, thank you. And I
worked for
appreciate
it,
that.
you know. And even when you said, well, you know, it just happened to be and it worked out that way. It doesn't always work out that way. You know, there's an old expression, the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And you know what? It goes back to that family thing. I know we're cutting out here. I know you're ready to go. but I have to
we're
tell
good.
you, I have to tell you, you know, I had a dad, I told you, run a dozer shop. And Joe, he was the boss. He did everything like I did, worked his way through the business, you know, up to general manager like I was in the dealerships. And I remember in the 80s, in the West Virginia, coal business was huge. It was everything to us in West Virginia 80s. How'd you get the coal out of the ground? You use caterpillars. You use dozers, excavators. My dad would get a phone call because, again, there was no cell phones and emails. Our phone would ring on a Tuesday night at 2 a.m. And my dad would get up at 2 a.m. and drive a mile down to the Caterpillar dealership. And he would cut a hydraulic hose and crimp it, Joe. Okay, put the ends on it and crimp it.
I know what you mean.
He'd handwrite the invoice, and he would go hang that hose on the front gate of the dealership so the coal company could pick it up at 4 o'clock and have that machine running at 6. Okay, my dad was the GM. It wasn't his job to go cut hoses and crimp them, but you know what? That customer needed that equipment. That customer needed, and the phone call came in then. So that ethic, you know, that came from my dad. We called him Big Dave, and of course, Big Dave Coombs, following the desire, following the details. Listen, when that guy let me paint the tires around High Point Raceway, as a 14-year-old, listen, he had me convinced that he was doing me a favor. He had me convinced, man.
And you know what? And in many ways he did, Matt. And in many ways he did.
Favor, Dave, Joe, you better believe it. So with that being said, those are the people I want to thank. And I want to encourage anybody who hasn't caught a national this season to get out and do that. It's unlike anything you've seen. Look forward to seeing you in about 48 hours.
You will.
We got a lot of things to talk about face to face.
We will.
Man, I just can't wait. And I appreciate the opportunity today, buddy.
Thank you, Matt, for joining me. And I will see you in a few days.
Man, I can't wait, Joe. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks.
This is Joe Abadi for Vintage Motocross Q&A. Don't go away. We are going to run a commercial break here. I will be back to wrap things up in just a minute with Vintage Motocross Q&A. All right, we're just about ready to wrap up the show. There's one last plug I want to make, and that is, of course, for Motion Pro. Don't forget to go to motionpro.com. They are still running a special, and then when you check out, type in MP9135. That's MP9135. You get 20% off across the board on everything at Motion Pro except custom-made cables. My guest tonight was Megawatt Matt Watson. Great guy, so much that he has done throughout the sport, throughout his career as an announcer, a salesman, just a great ambassador to the sport. And I want to thank Matt for joining me again. But this wraps it up for this edition of Vintage Motocross Q&A. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Until then, I don't know if he's – I'll try and get him. Let me see. Gino! I don't know if he wants to come in or not. Don't forget the Hangtown National this weekend. I will be up there. I'll have a booth set up. We'll be next to the Legends and Heroes display. Gino! I don't think he's going to be able to make it. Until next time, this is Joe Abadi for Vintage Motocross Q&A. We'll see you next time.